The claim that I will be refuting today is that more restrictive gun laws will make our community safer, and I will be challenging these secondary claims made by Eddie. The first is more restrictive gun laws will reduce gun-related crime, homicide, and suicide. The second is that society has needs for reasonable gun control. And the third is that guns end up in the wrong hands. So again, the first secondary claim is that more restrictive gun laws will reduce gun-related crime, homicide, and suicide. Some evidence that was given by the advocate was from a 1999 Harvard study that said that out of all the developed countries, the U.S. Has the most guns and therefore the highest homicide rate. However, this study is more than 10 years old, so it's kind of irrelevant to the argument that he's making. Also, I did some research on this, and according to nationmaster.com, which is ran by the 8 United Nations Survey on Crime Trends, the U.S. in 2011 actually dropped to number 4 in homicides due to guns, and actually South Africa is now number 1 with a little more than 31,000. There's some more evidence that he used was that there are more than 30,000 gun deaths in the U.S., 1,500 being accidents, and according to polyalmanac.com, which is a nationwide almanac of police records, 70% of these guns are performed with illegal guns. So therefore, even with more restrictive gun laws, people will still be able to acquire guns illegally and, kill other people. These guns weren't legally bought or owned, so. The second claim is that society has needs for reasonable gun control. His first argument was that U.S. citizens have a right to reasonable protection, especially from guns. But according to the Second Amendment, all U.S. citizens also have the right to bear arms. This is the Second Amendment, which comes right after freedom of speech and pretty much all of the rights that make America what it is. So it's pretty important. Another example was the Virginia Tech and Columbine shootings. These guns were actually purchased illegally. Friends of the shooters bought these guns from an unlicensed salesman, and then they were given to the shooters at both of these schools. Therefore, the laws wouldn't have prevented this. These guns still would have been acquired illegally, just like they were with the recent gun laws. The third claim is that guns end up in the wrong hands. Eddie stated that legally owned guns end up in the hands of criminals. And according to Dr. Michael D. Lyman, who has a PhD in philosophy and over 24 years in police studies, he stated that there are hundreds of thousands of guns in circulation among gangs and other third-party groups. So therefore, even if more restrictive gun laws were to be put into effect in the U.S., there are still, again, hundreds of thousands of guns that are owned by gangs and other third-party members that will still be out there when the law goes into effect. So therefore, people will still be able to acquire guns illegally. Another example he used was 2 shootings in Hungerford and Dunblane in the United Kingdom. However, I think this is kind of irrelevant to the argument because he's talking about gun control in the U.S., so these happened in the United Kingdom. Doesn't really make sense. He also said that guns end up in the hands of children. And I don't think that this is the law's fault. I think that this is the fault of the people who actually own the guns. More restrictive gun laws aren't going to make people hide their guns better or keep them out of children's reach. So therefore, more restrictive gun laws aren't going to help this. It's going to be the people who own the guns actually being responsible and putting these guns where young children or people who shouldn't have them can't find them. So to conclude, gun control laws won't really protect the people any more than the laws that we have now. Most guns in households will probably deter crime more than less guns would. And also, I believe that the claim that more restrictive gun laws will make our community safer does not have efficient evidence to be proven.
I could read it from here. Thank you. All right, the main and secondary issues are labeled pretty clearly. On the first point, you're challenging the recency of the study, and I'm not sure that that gets you very far to suggest that it's 10 years old, so we don't need to pay attention to it. Well, why is that too old? What's changed dramatically? If this is a problem that's continuing, I'm not exactly sure that the claim that you're making here is problematic. Now, the argument that suggests that the U.S. has actually reduced the number of homicides and that we have declined as being number one and we've gone down to number 4. I don't know that that exactly proves the point that you're suggesting, although it might be helpful if we knew what the gun laws were of the other 3 countries that ended up in front of us. I think that would be a little bit more helpful. I do think that you have a good argument here arguing that the statistics suggest that a large proportion of the guns involved in the crimes were obtained illegally, which means essentially that laws do not prevent these crimes from occurring. That's the way you need to state that claim. You're kind of dancing around it. Keep it succinct and direct, and then give us the explanation. You're kind of giving us the inference after you've given us the explanation and the evidence, and it's not always as sharp as it needs to be. On the issue of conflicting rights, well, that comes pretty straightforward. That's really a value issue that's going on here. Your claim about Virginia Tech and Columbine, you say that they were acquired from illegal practices. You need a source citation on this. You need to tell us who said this, what your proof is. I remember both of those cases. I think part of what you're saying is true in the Columbine case. I'm not sure it's at all true in the Virginia Tech case. And the first thing that I want to know is what makes you believe that that is the case. And you don't have any source citation on that particular point. The third point, you label it pretty clearly. It really feels like you're going in circles on this argument. Your claim seems to be that it can't really be controlled anyway because there's so many guns available. And I think that that's the way you want to state the argument, that additional controls would not be able to prevent the circulation of existing guns and therefore would be unable to prevent additional crimes committed with those guns that are already in circulation. I'm not sure what the advocate's use of the UK example was. I'm not sure that your argument suggests that it's automatically worthless because it occurred someplace else. So your analysis there needs to be a little bit sharper. And I understand the last point. You're basically trying to shift responsibility. It's a causality issue. It's sort of like that drunk driving example that we talked about. Okay, thank you.